Alright guys, we're back. My name's Dash. This is Carissa. And this is my S2000. I've always been into cars, even further back than I can remember. My family has always been like, oh yeah, we'd be driving around and you'd see a car and you'd just be fixated on it and obsessed with them. And I remember being really little and taking baths, and I had my Hot Wheel cars around the bathtub. I'm sure like every car guy has been here, and you're racing around, you got the bubbles and you're making tunnels and just having fun as a kid, not knowing where it was going to take me, where it was going to lead, or anything like that. But that's kind of like, it's always been a part of my life. Getting what actually started it, and it wasn't even Fast and Furious, like the super cliche everything, which it's true for a lot of people, and it's really true for me for certain instances, but it really started with Gran Turismo and playing the racing games. And my favorite car on there was the Toyota Altezza and the GTR Skyline. And then it kind of, that really started planting the seed for me. And then Fast and Furious came out in, I think, 2001. And I was like, oh my gosh, they made a movie for me. Like, this is the lifestyle that I want. I want the races, I want the music and the dancing and everything else that comes with it. And in the first Fast and Furious, that was the first time that I ever saw an S2000. Had no idea what it was. I wasn't a Honda fanboy at the time. And I saw this car and I was like, I have to have one of those. And once I got older, got my license, started looking at them, and this was before they started skyrocketing in value. They were still relatively new at this point, but they were way out of my price range. So it kind of was, that dream was put off to the side. And then Chris and I reconnected, started dating again, and we started diving into her car more. And the more we got into that, the more I wanted something that a car that I could be really passionate about. I've had Integras, Hondas, Civics, Del Sol, RSX, kind of stuck in the Honda Acura family, and then I got my S2000. It's as good as I had ever dreamed it would be, and it's nowhere near where the FRS is, but it'll get there. But that's kind of how I started into cars. That's how I first learned about the S2000, and it was my realistic, attainable dream car. And it's been a dream come true. We were down in the cities at the Paul Walker Memorial Cruise, and since we were down there, this was before we started going every weekend. This was like maybe once in a month, once every couple months we would go down the cities for a show. And we were down there, so I was like, well, maybe there were a couple for sale down there that I saw on Craigslist and everything, and it's like, well, maybe somebody will let me test drive it, because I didn't know if I'd fit. I'm 6'4", kind of a freak of nature, Japanese guy, and the S2000 is like a Miata. It's meant for smaller people. But a guy said, yeah, he'll go wash it, and we can meet up with him after the cruise. And when I saw it, fell even more in love with the car, realized that I could make it work. It wasn't practical by any means, but I was willing to sacrifice comfort and just everything else that came with it in order to be able to have this car. Didn't think I would be buying it, but came back home, went to the bank, and for some crazy reason they approved us for the loan. And a couple days later drove down to the cities and got my S2000. The first things with the S2000 that we ended up doing was, so the car when I bought it was completely stock, other than it had K-Sport coilovers on it. It was Berlina black, it was beautiful, super clean, VIN matching panels, it had the OEM hardtop on it, which unfortunately we couldn't afford when we bought it. But I got the car for a steal of a deal. And it started off with getting RPF ones and a good summer tire, and then we rolled around on it with that for a little bit. I got my HKS single exit exhaust, and that's kind of where it's at. I did some lighting upgrades, and that's about it. And then I wrapped it for the first time, and I wrapped it in satin ghost flip pearl, so it was just really clean white. And white is one of my favorite colors on S2000s, just because of how clean it looks. Then I wrapped it again, and then I changed that wrap a little bit, and I took that wrap off, and then I wrapped it again, and that's what you see behind us. And it's a stealth camo, which when you think of an S2000 and a wrap or a color of it, you don't think camo. You don't think a crazy color. Clean looks best on S2000s because they have clean body lines, rounded edges, they're not very aggressive. But I wanted something that was going to be different, and I like being different. I like being flashy and standing out, and this is by far the most muted that the car has ever looked. Things that are done to it, things that weren't mentioned before, is I got a Sabin carbon fiber hood, and if you don't get these clear coated right away and you have them in the sun for too long, after a few years they start yellowing. The resin in the carbon fiber starts breaking down, and it didn't match the car. It was ugly, so I decided to wrap most of the hood, left the vents exposed just so people know it's carbon. Have energy carbon hood struts, spoon strut bar, painted the valve cover, and that was actually the original color of the wheels that I had painted, but now we're on a different setup. It had an AEM cold air intake, but the design of it is terrible. The filter sits right down below the headlight, and where the water drains, it drains right onto the filter. It's tilted up so it holds water. And one day I was driving through the rain and I sucked up a bunch of water in the engine and it killed it. And I thought I hydrolocked the engine, and I was heartbroken. Tore apart the head, wiped it all out, got all the water out, put it all back together, started right up, ran like a tramp. Auto Technic carbon fiber cooling plate, Mishimoto radiator, and a few things are going to be changed up once we go with the turbo build, just to help with cooling and everything else like that. The splitter rods are actually fully torqued racing. They're not your typical ones that you see that people buy on eBay and Amazon. They're pretty beefy. And then just a ABS plastic sheet that I cut out for the splitter, and it's worked out really good because I scrape on everything. The car is static, so I'm not worried about that getting scraped up or damaged or anything. And then, like I said before, the Oddhan wheels, Circuit Garage over fenders, Z-Spec hardware, the APR carbon fiber mirrors, and then as far as interior goes, we have the Brid Zeta 3 Type L seat, so it's a little bit bigger, a little bit taller and wider than their standard version, but I am the absolute max sizing that you can fit in this. But it's full carbon backing, the PCI mounts, and then the rest of the stuff that looks like carbon fiber is actually just hydro dipped. And then I have my Sparco steering wheel. And being taller and larger in an S2000, I needed to do everything that I could to get myself to fit in here. So it's a small steering wheel, flat bottom, bucket seat, mounted to the floor, and I fit just fine now. This is actually a custom roll bar. It's designed after the spoon roll bar for the S2000, but I picked this up off a friend that was parting out his build. So I got it for a really good deal, and it just kind of gives a little bit more aggressive look to the rest of the car, because these cars are not very aggressive looking to begin with. Ended up going with the APR GTC 200 wing, all carbon, and then the tail lights I ended up going with because while I was sitting at work, a Tundra decided that it'd be a good idea to back into my car. And it caused $6,000 worth of damages to the rear end of this car, and luckily he had insurance. He didn't take off. He let me know, which thank God he did. But got the car repaired, replaced the factory taillights with these ones, and now she's good as new. One of the first things I did was the exhaust. I went with a single exit exhaust versus sticking with the dual exit. Mixed reaction from certain people. Some people prefer the dual exit. I wanted a single exit, so I went with the HKS. And in the trunk I have just a thrown together sound system, just for something. It's not show worthy, but I didn't have anything to mount the amplifiers, so I had a belt on at the time and a pocket knife, and I chopped those up and I threw some self-tappers through, and it holds the amps just fine. But yeah, that is pretty much everything done to the S2000, and there's so much more coming. I actually ordered yesterday a fully carbon inside and out Mugen style hardtop for this, so that'll be coming in the next about 6 weeks, hopefully no longer. But super excited about that. And like I said before, we have the turbo kit that is being pieced together right now, and that'll be done this winter time. And hopefully on E85 we'll be pushing about 450 to 500 to the rear wheels. And this car is already sketchy as it is, and it's going to be a monster after that, so super stoked. Well, again guys, this is my Honda S2000. Thanks for checking it out.